This is Lewis Wood at Dynasty Pancake on X, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Dynasty Hot Seat, the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified Inferno. And today we've got a very welcome return guest onto the show, part of the Fantasy Wildcard family, of course. We've got Lewis Wood. You can find him over next at Dynasty Pancake and over at his amazing website as well, at Dynasty Pancake. Lewis, great to see you again, mate. We were talking only a couple of days ago, but still great to see you again. How you doing?
Great to be on. Yeah, it's good fun getting to do two podcasts with you in the same week, and you coming on our show, and then me coming on yours. It's a delight to be back on.
Yeah, it's been absolutely great. Yes, what an absolute treat! And then we'll get to see each other in London, not so in a few weeks' time. So it's going to be good. Well, small disclaimer: my voice, Lewis, a bit sore, a bit scratchy. Not ill. I was at 15-year-old me's dream. I was at a Green Day concert only a few days ago in Glasgow. Dude, it was so good. I was belting it out. So my voice is slightly gone, but totally worth it.
That is a completely justified reason to have your voice be shot. And I have to say, Reading 2011, I was definitely the same the next day after seeing them.
Yeah, what a show! I absolutely loved it. So I'll try and get through this today as we venture back into deal or no deal. Today is the NFC South we're going to cover, Lewis. And in case anyone watching, if you've not seen the show before, hey, welcome along, by the way. Make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe. If you're wondering how this deal or no deal works, it kind of works like the show. If you don't know the rules of the show, there are boxes with mystery prizes beneath them. In this show, they're all players from the NFC South. What will happen is Lewis is going to open a couple of boxes. Then there's going to be a mysterious call from a banker who will give Lewis an offer. Lewis will choose to accept or decline the offer, just like you would do in your dynasty trades. If he accepts, we're hoping to see some good players come off the board and end up with a bad box at the end, Lewis. If you don't, we keep going, and hopefully we see an excellent player behind the box that you have chosen at the start. And we're gonna pull it up right away, Lewis, and we're going to get started on this deal or no deal adventure that we have here. So the way the show works is, Lewis, you're going to start off with a box that's going to be yours. You're going to choose one to keep until the very end of the show. Do you have like a lucky number or anything like that, or are you just going to go for a random one?
Yeah, my lottery numbers are always 3, 6, 7, 12, 26, 29, which is my birthday, my partner's birthday, and then the date we get married next year.
That's lovely.
So I think I'll go with 3 because we get married on the 29th of March and 29 isn't on there. So we'll do 3 for March next year.
Yeah, I was about to say, you can't pick 99 either for Aaron Donald, unfortunately. It'll be a very long show. Yeah, so we'll go with 3. That is the box that you're locking in as your own. We'll not open that until the very end then, Lewis. So we're going to cover, like I said, the NFC South. Lewis, I'll give you a rundown of who's available. Now, I have to say, this is a pretty good batch. On paper, when you look at some of these teams, you're like, oh, maybe not the best of fantasy, but actually some good players in here. So with the Panthers, you got Bryce Young available, Jonathan Brooks. I got Rashad Penny in there, Jonathan Mingo's in there, and Jatavion Sanders in there as well from the Panthers. Over at the Bucks, you got Baker Mayfield, Rashad White, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and of course, I couldn't not include K. Dotton as well because we know our friend Hannah is his #1 fan, so I had to put him in. Over at the Falcons, you got Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, the absolute terrible Drake London, and Tyler Algier as well. And then the Saints, you've got Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, and the mascot of the Wildcard Rewind show, which Lewis appears on, Rashid Shaheed, is obviously available. He's probably behind box number 3, Lewis, the way you guys love him, right?
He's the headline sponsor of the show, and we get paid for each mention. So if he is behind the box, then that'll work out very well for me financially.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm getting a small cut of the Rashid Shaheed fund for this show only. And of course, Lewis, I've also included in here an early 2025 first and the dreaded, we call it the Paul Pickin pick, the late 2027 fourth round pick is also in there. So, Lewis, we're going to roll into round one. You get to open 5 boxes. Where would you like to go first?
We're going to start with box number 1.
Box number 1. Let's do it. Open up box 1, and we have
Yes.
what a dream start. Already doing better than Paul Pickin, no matter what. Only opening 1 box. Yeah, the dream start. Let's do you have anything to say about some late sleepers in the 27 class? No, I mean,
I'm not. I can't say I'm there with my deep sleepers from 3 drafts out from now.
let me get the Devi guys on the chat by that later, right?
Yeah.
So we got that. The dream start, Lewis. That is amazing. The 27th fourth off the board. You got 4 more picks. Where are you going?
Let's go box 4.
Box number 4. Hey, Kirk
Oh.
Cousins. Kirk Cousins coming off the board. So slightly better piece for sure. What is Kirk Cousins' dynasty value right now? Because I have no idea.
He's a really tough one, and I would say probably about the same as maybe a mid 2024 first if you still haven't drafted yet, maybe a mid 2025 first. He's very, very difficult, and he's always going to be better for a contending team. He's very difficult to buy because we know that the lifespan, he was the biggest loser with the Michael Penix pick, aside from maybe Michael Penix himself, because we know that the lifespan just isn't that long on him. But also on a contending roster, he's going to be a very startable quarterback for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I just find it so hard. It's going to be really interesting to see if he shows any kinds of slowing up on this Achilles. Do you think the Falcons will be brave enough to put Michael Penix in this season?
I would be surprised. I think the amount of money that they've paid Kirk Cousins, they need to at least give him this season. And I think probably, although Michael Penix is very pro-ready, so actually comes in as one of the more capable backups immediately if Kirk Cousins went down. If he did an Aaron Rodgers and went down game 1, I would be surprised if they were to actively bench Kirk Cousins. I think it will only be an injury that sees Michael Penix take the field.
Yeah, I would agree. Cousins coming off the board there, but lots of great players available there. So not the end of the world losing Kirk Cousins. So where are you going next?
Box 5 next.
Box 5. We've got look at that.
There you go. His friend.
his mate. They can't get away from each other, Lewis, no matter what. No matter what Kirk Cousins tries. It's Michael Penix Jr. He's gonna play in the next 2 years, right? He'll be the starter. He has to be.
Yeah. I think he ends up starting towards the end of next season, so the 2025 season. He's a really interesting one. I've seen a lot of really intelligent arguments about him across social media, which is that if you were picking him for 2026, he'd be a first round pick. So you should take, if you can take him in the Superflex 205, you're basically trading the 205 for a 26 first round pick.
Yeah, I've seen that argument as well. In fact, in a couple of leagues, like in Superflex leagues, especially, see if you're in like a 14 teamer, right? He's a real sneaky value, I think, as well. So people kind of, if he's letting fall to the second in like a 14 team Superflex or even bigger, if you're in any of those, I think he's a real nice pick, like an ideal rebuild pick as well, Michael Penix, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think probably you want to look to buy him midway through this season because, like with Jordan Love, everyone will forget about him when we get into redraft mode.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Jordan Love, a perfect example of someone that if you just held on, now you're just laughing with the value you've got. So Michael Penix leaving the board. We've got 2 more picks left. Where are you going next?
Let's go box 9 next.
Box 9. Hey, it's Rachaad White. Rachaad White, for me, Lewis, one of the biggest sells in Dynasty right now. I'm not sure if you're on the same boat.
Yeah, so the interesting thing with Rachaad White, he obviously had a really stellar season last season, which is his first one without Leonard Fournette. And the problem is I don't think he was hugely efficient with it. I think it was that he
No.
just had an incredible amount of volume. They
Hmm.
obviously went out this offseason and drafted a very similar running back. Um,
Yeah.
which I thought was a slightly strange one. I was expecting them to potentially look at running back. When they ended up with Bucky Irving, I thought, isn't that just Rashad White? Isn't he good at the same things Rashad White is good at? Same as the
Yeah.
Kyron Williams, Blake Corum thing, that I would prefer getting complementary pieces. To me, Bucky Irving is one of them, almost comparably to Kyron in that I don't really believe the testing. I believe what I saw on the field, and I think he's a more explosive version of Rashad White. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rashad White lose his job, and he's being valued about sort of the RB10, RB11 spot at the minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he was that inefficiency. I think, he could just come in. And even a slight lessening of, that, especially in PPR, slight lessening of that pass catching from White. That's going to see a massive dump on his points. But the issue is, I've got Rashad White in, I think, 2 leagues.
Yeah.
I cannot, even though he's valued technically at running back 10, I cannot get running back 10 price from him. Nobody wants to buy him.
No, it's a very difficult time to sell running backs.
Yeah.
No one. I almost think we need to go the other way. I think the dynasty community is now almost undervaluing running backs in the off season because no one will buy anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's a very, very difficult time. You're right for sure to get these running backs on board, especially someone like a Rashad White. Hard to sell them on. And you got one more pick left of this round. Pretty good round so far, especially the first pick. Where are we going? Let's end it off on a high note as well, Lewis. Where are we going?
Let's go box 22.
Box 22 is Baker
Baker.
Mayfield coming off the board. He's another interesting one to value as well, coming off a season where I believe he was quarterback 10 and has pretty much the same weapons. I don't think
Same
they've
exact
lost anyone.
supporting cast. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
Jalen
pretty good for
McMillan as
Baker.
well, who's someone I really like.
Yeah,
They obviously did lose the offensive coordinator to Carolina, which I think could be
yeah,
quite a big issue for Baker. Um,
yeah.
I quite like selling him at the minute. I managed to get, I think it was the 107 for him from a very QB needy team.
Hmm.
Because I feel like he's one of those quarterbacks that's going to constantly feel either valueless or overflated when these players that get paid. We're constantly going, that they should be a starter. They're one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league, and then they get paid, and you go, they're going to be a starter forever. And then you watch them again, and you go, yeah, but they are like QB 26, so you probably should
Yeah,
replace them.
yeah, yeah. He's someone I like having as like a second or third quarterback at the minute. If
Yeah,
I'm in a super flex league and Baker is like my QB1, I'm kind of going, right, I need to assess the
yeah,
situation here. Even though it worked last year, and there's almost certainly someone out there that won a championship out there with Baker
yeah.
as a QB1 because he was quarterback 10 last year. I wouldn't really bet on that repeating next year, but I still think he can be solid. But we've seen this before with Baker. In fact, I was about to say the NFL is ruthless. The NFL has been ruthless to Baker Mayfield already when he was on the
Yeah,
Browns. Like he got them to the playoffs and they just went, nah, we don't think we can win a Super Bowl with you, so you're gone.
yeah.
So they're on such a short leash, right?
Yeah, I know. And then he was cut by the Panthers midway through the next season and ended
Yeah.
up on the Rams. And that, I mean, that ended up well for him because he performed well on the Rams and ended up challenging for the job in Tampa Bay. But yeah, the NFL is so ruthless with quarterbacks because we've got so many monsters in the NFL now. If your
Yeah.
quarterback is in that kind of 20 to 30 range, you're probably looking to move on from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're absolutely spot on there. And that brings us to the end of round one. And Lewis, you know what that means? That means that we're getting a call from the banker. Yes, hello. Okay. The banker is very impressed with your start, Lewis, especially getting that 27 late fourth off the board. The banker says, going to offer you an intriguing first offer here. For box number 3, the banker would like to offer you Dontavian Wicks.
Hmm.
What do you think
It's
about that?
definitely an interesting one to me. Wicks is someone as I generally have tended to stay away from Green Bay wide receivers, and this is
Mm,
generally the case with wide receiver rooms that are a little bit complicated and we're waiting for someone to establish themselves as the alpha. I
mm,
tend to just assume that I'm not smart enough to figure out who it's going to be. And there's probably a few other players there in Green Bay that I like slightly more than Wicks. I think definitely he showed a lot in his rookie season. So he was wide receiver 58, which is really good as a fifth round pick. Um,
yeah,
Ended on, I've just got it in front of me. Yeah, 39 receptions, 581 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's pretty nice. I'm probably going to turn down the offer for this because I think I can probably get slightly more. I think there's still some
yeah,
very intriguing players out there, a lot of skill position talent. But Wicks is a very interesting player.
yeah, yeah. I think that's one to confuse you. Right, that Green Bay room is a bit confusing for sure. So I think the banker's trying to pull a fast one there, if I'm honest, Lewis. So we'll move on. Are we officially saying no deal there?
No deal.
No deal. Right. Let's move on to round two. We've got 5 more boxes to open. We start off real hot. So let's keep going. Round number 2. The first box is going to be just as good. Where are we going?
Box 21.
Box 21 is it's Chris
Oh no.
Olave.
Oh no,
That's
that's
one
a
of the
big
big
one.
hitters. So Chris Olave, a bit of a down year last year, despite not really having too much competition. Is that purely a quarterback thing, a scheme thing? What happened with Chris Olave? Because we've seen him produce before in his rookie year where he looked really, really good, and something happened last year. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, he was a really difficult player last year. He actually ended up being really the pillar of consistency when you look across his games last season.
Hmm.
So he ended up he finished with more games less than 10 fantasy points than he had over 20 fantasy points. But the majority of his games, so it was 25% were under 10 fantasy points, and then another 12.5 on top of that were over 20, which means that what more than three, or just under three-quarters of his games were between 10 and 20 fantasy points, which is nice. That's a nice place to
Yeah,
be. It's not really what you want for the price that you have to pay for Chris Olave right now,
yeah,
but having a down year and still being like pretty consistent. The problem is nothing has changed in New Orleans. He's still the only wide receiver there. It's still the same kind of on the downturn Derek Carr. It's still the same offense. So I
yeah.
can't really see how things would potentially improve for him unless he takes another step.
I find it really tricky with players like Olave and Drake London, who I'm sure we'll get to later, and to a lesser extent Garrett Wilson, because I just see that he's much more like I think he's just much more talented than those two
Yeah,
guys. But they're ranked so highly, like they're wide receiver 10, wide receiver 11, and you've got guys like Tyreek Hill, for example, Jalen Waddle ranked below them, who have sort of consistently finished better than them. I'm,
yeah.
I'm the kind of guy where I'd rather just have 2 years of Tyreek Hill being wide receiver 1 or 2 than hoping Chris Olave is going to turn into what we think. I don't know where you sit in that fence.
Yeah, I actually, and this can give a little tease to some work coming out soon. I've been putting
Ooh.
together an article about the sophomore breakout,
Mm,
and how likely it is to finish as a wide receiver 3 or better when you do it early on, and basically the answer being that it's not as often as we think it is. It
mm,
actually players don't hugely boom year on year. And I think what we
mm.
do as dynasty players is we go, well, they finished as wide receiver 15 this year, so that means the year after that will be wide receiver 10, then wide receiver 5, and then wide receiver 1 the rest of their career. Like we
Yeah,
assume that the progress is linear, and actually, when you look into the numbers, it's only about a 21-point average between wide receivers taken in the first 2 rounds that play more than 13 games for both seasons, which is what,
well,
just over a point a game, not a huge amount of a breakout. So I'd rather kind
yeah,
of a lot of the time get that established production.
yeah, yeah. I'm right there with you. But Olave, yeah, I'm on the fence about it. I think the
Yeah.
price is slightly too high, but I kind of get it as well because we've seen him in that rookie year look so good. So he's off the board. He's a big piece. let's bounce back here, Lewis. Let's get one of these. Let's get like an absolute noob like Rashad Penny off the board, right?
Let's go for box 2.
Box 2. That's oh no.
No.
Oh no. That's
we're
not
Paul
Rashad
Pickening
Penny. I hope that
Oh,
turns into an adjective. It's like I'm absolutely picking that.
I'm
Bijan
picking into
Robinson.
this.
Here's a loaded question. Was Bijan Robinson I'll not say flop, that's too strong. A major disappointment last year?
I think the answer is yes, and I think the answer is that we were immediately taking him about the RB3 in redraft. We thought he was going to finish as the he was the RB1 in Dynasty before he even joined the league. I mean, he still finished as the RB9. He had a really solid rookie season when we just look at it, without the context, and he only scored, so it's 8 touchdowns, 4 receiving, 4 on the ground, less than 1,000 yards, only had 214 attempts, which isn't really what we thought Bijan was going to be, especially when we had an Arthur Smith offense that we thought is going to, be built around the running back. So I think he was disappointing. I don't think Bijan was ever disappointing when he was on the field. I don't think he ever looked like we were all wrong about him. I think he just wasn't used enough. So it's not really bothering me looking forwards because the player is what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. He's your dynasty running back one? I know a lot of people have him and Breece Hall are neck and neck now. Is he your number one?
Yeah, he is my dynasty RB1. I absolutely love Breece Hall. But Bijan, it's the age and then also the injury to Breece Hall. Like, the problem with running backs is the moment they've had any either ACL or Achilles, they never tend to come back to 100% of what they were.
Yeah. Which is why you should buy Tasha Spears, because he cannot tear his ACL, right? That's like
he doesn't have one.
Exactly. It's like thinking ahead there. So yeah, Bijan Robinson off the board. We didn't want to see that. We got 3 more boxes to open this round. Where are we going to go next?
Let's go box 8.
Box 8. Let's get a bounce back here. We've got it's Alvin Kamara coming. It's
not
off
a good round, Mags.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara. I think he's going to have a great year. We spoke about this on the Rewind show. I think he is criminally underrated in redraft. So I don't even know where he's going in Dynasty. It must be way below that again.
Yeah, and it's interesting calling him criminally underrated because last season he was a criminal. Last season he was suspended, and that's why we saw the drop off. But actually, in terms of points per game, I think he was either the RB3 or RB4 last season. He finished as a low end RB1, but he absolutely performed when he was on the field. And as we were just talking about with Chris Olave, it's going to be the same for Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is the wide receiver 2 on this team, and the ball has to go somewhere. I'm very in on him for this season, and definitely as sort of a relatively cheap. Like, I think you could probably buy him for maybe a 20-25 second or a couple of seconds, and he's going to have much more impact on your roster than those seconds are going to have.
Yeah, I'm just checking. I mean, this isn't the holy grail of rankings. It's a bit of the Wild West. But on Keep Trade Cut, Alvin Kamara is running back 27 in Dynasty. And I just think that's for example, running back 29 is Kendre Miller. So that's ridiculous. That is I don't know where that. I think that's going to be one. If you're listening, just remember this. Whenever we're 3 weeks into the season, see where Alvin Kamara is ranked 3 weeks into the season when he's right up there, top 5 running back. Probably he'll not be sitting at 27. So go get him. Trading for him might be trickier because I think anyone who has Alvin Kamara knows what they have. But I've been getting them in startups. Any kind of new startups I've been doing, that seems to be the sweet spot for going to get Alvin Kamara. So he comes off the board. He's not the most valuable guy on this roster. So I think we can take the hit of Alvin Kamara for sure, but we want a bit of a bounce back after the other two. So where are we going next?
Let's go box 18.
Box 18. Hey, Derek Carr. That's more like it, right?
That'll do. That's better.
He's going to get replaced by Spencer Rattler, isn't he?
I think he is. Spencer Rattler's such an interesting one because he was the presumed first overall pick a couple of seasons ago. And it was really interesting
Yeah.
because going into that season, it was Spencer Rattler for Oklahoma versus Sam Howell at UNC. And
Yeah.
those were our two guys going in. They both ended up being day three picks. But there's a lot of talent to Spencer Rattler, and I don't think Derek Carr wants to be in New Orleans, and I don't think New Orleans want Derek Carr. They were
No.
the fans were chanting for Jameis Winston last season. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him lose his job. I still quite like getting him relatively cheap because I'm quite keen on just for like a almost like a stocks purpose. You buy the quarterbacks that people think are going to be replaced cheap in the off season, and then you
Yeah.
sell them very early on in season, just to sort of move up a few spots in the draft or get yourself an extra asset.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy I think as well with Derek Carr. He's probably got one more run in him, right? Like
Yeah.
kind of like maybe more like a Minshew where he has to be a backup for a bit. But I think he's got one more chance left in him. I mean, we've seen some of these quarterbacks do have 9 lives, like Gardner Minshew, who's kind of ironically playing on Derek Carr's team now. But yeah, I think he'll be given another shot at some stage. I think so. Car's
Yeah.
coming off the board, but yeah, that's a good box to open for sure there, Lewis. And you got one more. Let's keep this roll going. Where we're going with our last pick of round number 2.
Let's go box 6.
Box number 6. There he
Yes.
is. Rashad Penny coming off the board. If Rashad Penny is fully healthy, which is always an interesting phrase, how much work do you think he sees, or is Jonathan Brooks just going to be the workhorse here?
Well, Jonathan Brooks isn't going to be the workhorse for the first few weeks of the season. So I
Yeah.
definitely think there's some interest there. It says a lot that Rashard Penny was maybe my favorite best ball pick last off season when he was
Yeah.
just been signed by the Eagles, and it was a case
Mhm.
of okay, there was Miles Sanders. No, it was Rashard Penny, DeAndre Swift, and who's the tiny guy? Who's that? Boston Scott.
Yes.
And Kenneth Gainwell, and who do you want to go for? And I was always taking Rashard Penny, and then I think he got like 2
Mhm.
carries all season. It's an
Yeah.
interesting room there because it's what Brooks, Penny, Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders. Rashard Penny is probably the second most talented back there.
Right.
I just can't see him. I can't see him being healthy. Unfortunately, which is such a shame because that one season in Seattle where he was healthy for the whole season or the majority of the season, he was a very good running back. He's just never been able to stay on the field.
It's a shame, right? It's just one of those ones where it's one of those what ifs for sure, right? What if Rashad Penny's still healthy? We don't know what we would have been looking
Yeah,
at, and that brings to we pulled it back there. I think towards the end of that round, still lost some
yeah,
big
that was
hitters,
all right.
but I think pulled it back for sure. So let's see what the banker has to say, Lewis. Yes, hello. All right, interesting. The banker's very pleased that Bijan Robinson is off the board. Very pleased. I'll have to pass it on, and Chris Olave. So the banker would like to pull on some heartstrings a little bit, Lewis, apparently. The offer is Tutu Atwell. What do you think about that?
I'm fine, thank you, banker. I'm all right actually. I'm fine. I still have a lot of affection for Tutu, and he's very good at what he does. But
Yeah.
what he does doesn't lead him to being on the field very often. So I'm actually okay. I knew it was going to be lower than Wicks having
Yeah.
taken Bijan and Chris Olave, but I'm not taking Tutu.
There was a small bit last year whenever Cup was injured, right? There was a couple of weeks where you're like, okay. And that was more for me. It was more like Sean McVay can get like a broomstick open. Like
Yeah,
really, he is he is that good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tutu
So
Atwell is fast, but nothing
yeah.
else, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we're saying no deal to Tutu Atwell. I think the back are
No.
trying to tug at some fandom there for sure. So we'll move on into round number 3. Let's get a big round here, Lewis. We want a big offer from the banker. And let's just take stock a little bit here and remind you who you've got left. So from the Panthers, you've still got Bryce Young, Jonathan Brooks, Jonathan Mingo, and Miles Sanders. So we can get rid of some of those guys. That would be great this round. At the Bucks, you've got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Cade Otton as well. For the Falcons, you've got Drake London and Tyler Algier. And over at the Saints, you got Spencer Rattler and, of course, Rashid Shaheed too. So where are we going to go? Who's the most valuable piece on the board there for you, actually? Just before we move in.
If we're talking Superflex, it's probably still Bryce Young, even after a difficult first season. If we're not, then I think you're probably looking at. I mean, Drake London is still incredibly valuable.
Yep.
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have a decent amount of value to them. Jonathan Brooks absolutely has a lot of value to him as well. So I think those would probably be the 4 or 5 players that I'd be hoping to be behind box 3, which is going to be Rashid Shaheed.
Oh, almost. That's like, you should decline any offer. If Rashid Shaheed is on the board, you could be offered like Bijan next to him, and you should still say no, because that's destined to be for sure. So let's hope we don't see Shaheed on here. So where are you going with your first pick of the third round?
You're gonna go box 12.
Box 12 is Tyler
Nice.
Algier. That's a great start for sure. I mean, Tyler Algier got a lot of strays last year for no fault of his own. Like, it was all to do with the system and like, why was he on the field at all? But actually, when he was on the field, he did just fine, right?
Yeah, he was completely fine. And the problem is, I felt really bad for Tyler Algier, right? Because he had the best rookie season ever by a Falcons running back. Tyler Algier had more rushing yards in his rookie season than Bijan Robinson had in his.
Wow.
That's very upsetting.
Wow.
He was very good, but the problem is, when you come in with that low draft capital, it's just very unlikely that you're going to maintain it. And I do feel bad for him, because everyone's constantly calling for him to be taken off the field, and all he's doing is trying to maximize the opportunities he has. But bless him, I think a lot of us would like to never see him play for the Falcons again.
I think. I wonder if even their own fans are like, this guy, like this. Like, I'm not really sure, but we're happy to see. Yeah, we're happy to see Tyler Algier for once there, Lewis, as he comes off the board. So we got 4 more picks. Where are we going next? Let's keep this rolling.
Box 7.
Box 7. That's Spencer Rattler. We kind of spoke about Rattler there. Obviously, was destined, right, to be that quarterback. What did Netflix not make like a documentary or like, what was that show? Was Justin Fields in that as well? I'm trying to remember.
Was it QB1? Was it called QB1?
I think it was called QB1. I think it was Rattler. I'm sure Justin Fields was on that as well for some reason. It's a while ago now since it was like, but
yeah, it was, and he was very much seen as like the next guy. But yeah, and it's a very interesting question of who I mean, I'm quite glad to see him go off the board here, because he's not hugely valuable, but I am very intrigued to know who you would rather have between him and Carr in Dynasty straight up right now.
Yeah, that is super close. Because I'm just fairly convinced that Rattler's going to take over. I guess I'll take Rattler as like another role, like a re-roll almost, but I'm not confident that. But I don't think Rattler will ever be as dynasty relevant as Derek Carr was at one stage in his career. But I think he'll be more dynasty relevant than Derek Carr is now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I think it's quite interesting him going to the Saints. It's a very interesting spot, because I know the Saints didn't have a huge amount of draft picks. And there was that massive gap, because was it Bo Nix and then all the way down to Spencer Rattler for the next one. But the Saints, he was the Saints' 3rd pick, and that was in the 5th round. So when you don't have that many picks available and you have a very old roster, using one of them on a quarterback is very interesting. That shows that that's someone that, you're quite happy they fell all the way to you.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what he can do for sure. And he's the kind of guy that seems to be at least used to like the pressure. I don't think the NFL will faze him as much as some of these other guys. Obviously, he's had camera crews following him forever. Like, he's like a big deal sort of, right, for a while. He's been this kind of chosen one. So I think, and he's also, if I'm Spencer Rattler, I've got a point to prove as well, which can sometimes really help. Like, that he fell that far. A couple of years ago, that was like inconceivable that he would fall that far. So I'm hoping he comes in
Absolutely.
and he does really well. So for now, we're happy to see him leave the board, but who knows? In a few years' time, maybe we're thinking, hey, Spencer Rattler, we should have taken him earlier. So
Yeah.
we got him off the board though. Where are we going next?
Let's go box 13.
Box number 13. It's Drake
Oh, that's a big one.
London. That is a big one. So tell me about Drake London, Lewis. I've obviously been very vocal about Drake London. I kind of touched on it earlier with Chris Olave. I don't like the placement really. I'm not saying that Drake London is like a scrub or like is untalented, even though I joke about that. I just don't like the placement of wide receiver 10. I think that's just
Yeah.
that's far too rich for me. What do you think about Drake London? Do you think he's going to live up to that and maybe finish as a wide receiver 1 this year with Kirk Cousins?
I think he can. So he's not someone that I have been hugely into in the last season, but there's a lot of very smart people who are quite in on him, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
making me start to pay attention, as well as obviously a very smart person that I know who's very out on him.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I I think definitely like the situation lends itself to Drake London just getting a stupid amount of targets. And I think that could make a huge difference for him. But in his last 2 seasons, he's had 117 and 110 targets, and he's finished as the
Yeah.
wide receiver 37 and 31. And you've
Yeah.
obviously done more digging into Drake London than I think anyone else, and particularly the reasons why he shouldn't be valued
Yeah.
this high. He's someone I'm definitely interested in. If I'm honest, I think it's one of those like we spoke about earlier, where the price is as if the breakout has already happened. And
Yeah.
yes, I think he can finish as a low end wide receiver 1. But if I can sell him for someone in that next tier down plus something else on top, like I'm sure if you look, you can probably get, Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, Tank Dell,
Yeah.
Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, like, and something on top for Drake London.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would absolutely do that.
Yeah, that is like the absolute dream move for me. If I had Drake London anywhere and I can get Michael Pittman plus for him, I'm just taking
Yeah.
that all the way to the bank for sure. So it's going to be interesting to see. Man, if Drake London does well, I'm screwed, right? I'm
You're
going
going
to
to
get
have to
so
quit Twitter
much.
for a bit.
I'm going to have to just, change my username and be like, that wasn't me. That was some other guy.
Hot
Like,
seat Drake.
yeah, it's a hot seat Drake. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Drake London. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully, I don't wish any harm on him. So hopefully, he has a good season for sure. So that's 3 picks into the third round. We got 2 more to go. Where are you going to go next, Lewis?
Let's go 17.
17 behind box 17. Oh,
Hey,
Hannah's
Dawson.
furious. Furious. It's kid. Like, do you know for a long time, just the way that his name is said, I think universally, I thought that his first name was like K, like Kay,
Oh, it's
and then,
K Dotton.
yeah, I thought that was his name forever, like K Dotton, but it's K Dotton, right? So I was like, why has he got like this old granny's name, like K Dotton?
And it says a lot
K
about the
Dotton,
player
right?
that's maybe the most interesting thing you can say off the back of talking about K Dotton
Oh my
is that his
God.
name is funny.
His name is quite funny. You're right. Yeah. Uh, does he have any real like? I suppose Mike Evans isn't getting any younger. That it's so hard to say with a team like the Bucks who are. It feels like under construction still. It's so hard to say what the future holds for K. Dotton, right?
Yeah. So K Dotton is going into year 3 now. He
Mm-hmm.
really performed in the playoffs. That's the really interesting thing. So
Mm-hmm.
in the 2 weeks in the playoffs, obviously they beat the Eagles and they got knocked out by the Lions. I mean, in the game against the Eagles, he had 11 targets, 8 receptions, 89 yards. The Lions game, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Like that's really solid tight end numbers. But then during the season, if you look at the way he finished out the season, he only finished
Mm-hmm.
as a top 12 tight end twice. And then after week 10, or after week 9, sorry, he it was tight end 13, 15, 15, 29, 51, 42, 29. So as much as Hannah may like him, they're moving Chris Godwin back into the slot. He's more likely to get those sort of close range underneath targets than K.
Yeah.
Dotton. K. Dotton's a good blocker. He's going to have the occasional touchdown game where he's relevant, but he's not someone that I'm hugely into. Sorry, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you as well. I think that he's a really good player, but if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm really happy I've got K. Dotton on my team, but I just don't see how you can ever really start him in your tight end position and trust him at all. So I know there's a lot of tight ends like that are in the this log jam of tight ends from let's say it's probably from tight end 7 to tight end 25 probably. I actually think K. Dotton is slightly outside of that even still. So yeah, he's not really worth picking up for me, unfortunately. And we've got one more pick left of this round, Lewis. Where are you going to go? Let's get one of these scrubs off the board.
Let's go box 20.
Box 20 is it's Chris Godwin. That was a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I like Chris Godwin this year a lot. You mentioned earlier moving back into the slot. What do you think that does for him?
Well, I think it's really interesting. He was moved around a lot last year, and the season where he finished as a wide receiver 2, I think it was back in 2019. He was playing predominantly out the slot. He should be, which makes it very interesting that they drafted Jalen McMillan, who people thought was likely to mostly play in the slot. Although I really like him, I think he can play and sort of line up anywhere in the formation. But I think it just means that he gets those short area targets. He has a very quick release. He's a really solid route runner, really sharp hands, and just can win quickly, which obviously means that it's better for him to play in the slot. I think he's going to be really fantasy relevant this year.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a great season. He's someone I've been targeting in any. I don't play in a ton of redraft leagues, but the ones that I am in, I'm really trying to target me some Chris Godwin. I've got a load of Chris Godwin shares for whatever reason in Dynasty. It's sort of one that I didn't realize, but it's just kind of accumulate. I guess I've always disliked the value of Chris Godwin. So yeah, I think he's going to have a really, really good year, hopefully. And I think, that brings us to the end of that round, which means any minute now, I think we're going to have a little phone call from the banker.
Oh, there you go.
Whew. Oh, yes. Hello? Oh, that's slightly mean. All right. The banker says you'd be lucky to get Jonathan Mingo in this game. That is cruel if I ever heard it, Lewis. So the banker is saying he's still worried a little bit about Jonathan Brooks, but apart from that, he's saying he's not too bothered at all. So he's offering you. I mean, I don't think this is great, but he's saying you should see the upside in Sam Howell. What do you think, Lewis?
Absolutely not. Sam Howell could be interesting, but I don't like taking these backup quarterbacks and hoping they break into something. And with the players I've got left, it will be Rashid Shaheed, but Rashid Shaheed is probably the least valuable player that I've got. Maybe him or Mingo, and I'd still probably take them over Howell. But I've still got Bryce Young still out there, Mike Evans still out there, Jonathan Brooks still out there. If we're playing in a Superflex league, Bryce Young's a second or third round pick. There could be someone quite valuable out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're saying no deal to Sam Howell.
No to Sam Howell.
No to Sam. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So that means we're into the last round. So we're going to open we've got 4 more boxes in this round, Lewis. So we're going to open 4 more boxes to finish off the round. Where are we going in the final round?
We're going to go box 10.
Box 10. It's Mike Evans.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, he's still got it. Right. He's so good.
He just always performs. He's one of my favorite players in Dynasty because he's always so cheap. But I bought him last offseason for Allen Robinson in a second.
Oh my god!
Team. He's always so cheap, but you can always start him.
Yeah. And what was he just signed a new contract, right? What did that contract look like? I don't know how many years it was, but he's got 2 more years in him, I think, right?
I think it was for 3 more years. I will just get it up so that we can actually make sure that we get this right. He has signed until so it's a lot of it's void years. He's signed for 2 more years of guaranteed money. and then it's
Yeah.
void years after that. It's technically a 5-year deal, but it's obviously not actually a 5-year deal. So
Yeah.
a pretty big extension for the next couple of seasons. At which point he'll be turning 33. So that's probably the end.
Yeah, that's when he turns into like a player like DeAndre Hopkins, right? Where he might be able to still do a job for you now and again, but he's not really worth starting and like not really worth not starting, not worth relying on in
Yeah.
your dynasty teams, but he'll still be like a nice player to get. I just hope he decides to call it a day before he can't get 1,000 yards. I think that is so
Yeah, I
important,
think so.
right? Yeah, I just
I
want him to
think
get
so.
that every year. If you remember, were you in that show last year when me and Paul almost had a bet that Mike Evans wouldn't get like 1,000 yards? So I was like, Paul, I'll bet you £1 for every yard he goes under or over. Like I thought, so. I think he's like, hundreds of yards over. It's like we never quite made that bet, unfortunately. I would have been up big time. So that would have been nice. So Mike Evans, yeah, didn't want to see him leave the board. We have a couple more picks. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we do have 4. Sorry, we do have 5 in this round. I don't know what I'm talking about. So we've got 4 more to pick.
Let's go 14 next.
Let's go with 14. Behind 14. Oh no!
Oh, Rashid Shaheed.
That is, I just told myself he was certainly behind box number 3.
I just assumed he would be, yeah.
Me too, right? Right, Lewis. The floor is yours. Let's talk about Rashid Shaheed and let's get this sponsor money rolling in, right?
Rashid Shaheed has given the Wildcard Rewind podcast over $3 million in sponsorship money since I started last year. No, Rashid Shaheed's a really interesting player. So he finished as a wide receiver 44 last year, which felt like it really went under the radar. He's not someone that you ever really look to start or want to start, but he had weeks where he finishes wide receiver 12. That was twice. He finishes wide receiver 8. He closed out the season with wide receiver 17 and 24 finishes. He's very, very boom bust. He's probably more of a DFS or best ball player than he is someone you're looking to start. But he's the sort of player that, if you're going into Monday Night Football really needing to win a week and you're having to choose between, say, you had Juwan Johnson on the Saints as well, or Rashid Shaheed, you want to go for someone that has the potential to have a 20-point week. So he is someone that I really like for the specific purpose that he fulfills.
Yeah, I love me some Shaheed as well. I think it's mostly down to you guys picking him up, and I'm just like, I really want him to succeed. So it's a shame he's not behind box number 3. And here's something interesting for you, Lewis. All the Saints players are gone, all the Falcons players are gone, and all the Bucks players are gone as well.
Really?
So yeah, believe it or not. And if you ever had a look at their home stadium this year, once again, the Panthers are playing behind closed doors because those fans did not turn up last year at all. So they should be used to this. So we've got Young and Brooks and Mingo and Sanders. They're the only 4 players left. You've got one of them. Obviously, you're hoping it's Young or Brooks, right?
Yeah. But there's 5 boxes, aren't there? So there should be one more player out there.
Oh, of course, it's the first round pick. That'll also probably be the Panthers.
Oh, yeah, incredible.
Early first.
Oh, yeah, there's still a first.
Another.
Oh, I completely forgot there's an early first out there.
I'd forgotten about that as well. So, I mean, the early first round pick will inevitably be the quarterback that goes to the Panthers anyway, Lewis. So,
yeah,
that'll also be a Panthers player too. So, yeah, we got those guys to choose from. So, you got Young, Brooks, the first round pick, and then Mingo and Sanders. Let's hope we get one of the good ones. Where are you going next?
Let's go box 11.
Box number 11. That is. Oh, there it is.
No!
First. Damn, we should have mentioned it.
Yeah, we brought it out.
Yeah, this game really wanted it to only be Panthers players left, no matter what.
Yeah.
So the first round pick in 2025, a couple of names obviously out there at the minute. Man, not excited. If it's going to be a quarterback, I'm not hugely excited right now by what we're getting out of Carson Beck out of Georgia. Doesn't fill me with huge positivity. I like the wide receivers, like Luther Burden, Ted McMillan, but not overly hyped about this class, to be honest.
No, not hugely. I mean, a lot of it depends on your opinion of Shedeur Sanders, who's not someone that I hugely want to take as the 101. But he absolutely could continue the breakout. Travion Henderson as well, definitely could be interesting. If it had been, before the injury played sophomore season, he was really seen as
Yeah.
almost like a Bijan level talent. So there definitely are some interesting players out there. I definitely think sort of, Luther Burden, Stewart, McMillan as well. Like the wide receiver class is probably. I mean, Egbuka as well, who I always forget went back. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely
Yeah.
some interesting players out there.
Yeah, definitely. Tet McMillan, that's my guy. I love watching him play. He's
Yeah,
he's my guy for next year, I think, already. So that could have been your 25 first. Unfortunately, it's gone
yeah.
away. So we are now down to these Panthers players, and we got to open two more boxes. We want to see Jonathan Mingo. We want to see Miles Sanders as well. So where are we going to go? 16,
Yeah.
19, or 15?
Let's go 15.
Let's go 15. 15 is it's Bryce
No.
Young. That's gutting. Bryce Young, he's still, I mean, I was fairly down on Bryce Young when he was coming out, mainly because I just couldn't fathom why you would ever take him over CJ Stroud, which was one of my better takes,
Yeah.
Lewis, I have to say. I just
Pretty
don't
good.
see how he becomes fantasy relevant. I think he's a fine quarterback, but a guy like him has to be like Drew Brees level good, Aaron Rodgers level good. Think about the historically
Yeah.
good only passing quarterbacks. I just don't think he's got that in him.
That's the problem, yeah, that he's not hugely as athletic as we want to be. He's really quite he is mobile, but the
Yeah,
problem is when he gets out of the pocket, he's just going to get absolutely killed. And he's very accurate as well, and decent out of structure. But yeah, he has to be unbelievably athletic unbelievably accurate to succeed.
yeah,
And based on what we've seen so far, it looks unlikely. Now, the change in head coach should hopefully make a big difference. Bringing in Deontay
yeah,
Johnson and a better running game should hopefully make a huge difference as well. But we'll see.
yeah. And hopefully some of their fans actually turn up this year to cheer
Actually,
them
go
on.
to games occasionally.
That'll be absolutely lovely for him, I'm sure, as well. So we've got three more on the board. Obviously, we're not going to open box number 3. We need to see Jonathan Mingo or Miles Sanders here because we want Jonathan
Yeah.
Brooks behind box number 3. So where are you going? 16 or 19?
I should have predicted before this started. We were talking about Rashid Shaheed, but Jonathan Mingo was my guy in last year's draft, and I've been
Ooh.
made fun of so much for that since, based off how he'd looked in the league. So I should have predicted that he would probably end up being the player I ended up with. Let's go box 19.
Box 19 is oh no,
No,
Lewis.
no,
That's gutting.
no, that's bad.
Oh, it's Jonathan Brooks. Um, he's good,
He's very
right?
good. He's very, very
Yeah.
good.
Uh, he's been ranked by some people at like top 10 running back already. Do you agree with that? I'm quite happy with that.
I'm relatively happy with that. The dynasty running back situation is quite difficult at the moment, and there's lots of players that are either aging out or that we're not 100% convinced by around that sort of range. So I don't think he'd be quite up in the RB1 range for me just yet. Especially
Mhm.
if he'd ended up on the Cowboys or the Chargers, definitely would have been more interested. But the Panthers not so much. I'm definitely, I'm very interested in him. I've been taking a lot of him, but not quite in that RB1 range for me just yet.
Yeah, I think he's looking trending towards being. Well, I keep reading different reports. It's so hard to tell. One week it seems to be like he's trending to start week 1, then it's like, oh, actually they're going to slow their roll. It's so hard to
Yeah,
tell with him. I hope they don't. The worst thing for him would be rushing back and getting re-injured. Then you're just
yeah,
in where you're immediately in J.K. Dobbins territory, which breaks my heart. Just even
yeah.
mentioning that guy's name. So
I know.
hopefully they take it slow with Jonathan Brooks. And I mean, Lewis, I'm sure you didn't want me to these words to be coming out of my mouth, but Jonathan Mingo and Miles Sanders
Hey,
are
what I can say, either of them are better just about than a 2027 late fourth. So I've done slightly better than picking.
that's absolutely true. And we still have to have a final offer from the banker. So let's see what that is, shall we? Yep. Hello. Said you should have taken Tutu out while you had the chance, Lewis. That's mean. that's mean. Oh, okay. Right. This is a perceived generous offer from the banker here. Says he's going to run with the theme, and he's actually offering you what he says is a more valuable player than both these guys. He says, just take your pick on the rest of the scrap for the Panthers, and I'll give you Adam Thielen if you want.
Oh, it's genuinely quite difficult.
Right?
And that's genuinely, and I don't like that it's difficult, and it's going to depend if I'm a contending roster or
Yeah.
if I'm not. If I'm contending, then probably I would. Um, I'm still going to hold out. Like Miles Sanders is completely dead. I'm going to turn down the offer. I'm going to hold out hope that it's Mingo and that I was right with my take last year. He's just going to take a bit longer to break out, even though he was genuinely terrible. And it will be funny if he ended up being my guy from last year, who was a very, very bad take. So we'll turn down Thielen. We'll hope for Mingo. We'll get Sanders, and we'll carry on with our days.
Was Mingo the guy that clip of him trying to stay in bounds by like leaping
Just jumps out of
violently out of
bounds.
bounds?
Yep. Yes. Yeah, that was the guy that I spent all of the offseason talking up on Twitter, Mags. That was that guy.
Oh no. What was going on there? At least there was no one there to see it. So that's all right. So Lewis, the final thing I have to ask you, you started with box number 3. Would you like to keep box number 3 or would you like to swap it to open box 16?
I'd like to keep box number 3, please.
All right. Keeping box number 3. It's hey! It's Jonathan Mingo. Right, go on. Tell me that this is going to be Jonathan Mingo season coming up, Lewis. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, you've got to think about the depth chart that's around him, and a lot of this comes into the fact that there potentially could be a breakout from Bryce Young and a breakout from having a new head coach and therefore offensive coordinator. Now, Mingo was a very interesting player for me when he was coming out. He was someone that I was really keen on, that I quite liked the route running in. He also, unlike everyone else in that draft class, came in with some size, and he was someone that I thought had a lot of potential. And like the size and the speed were absolutely fantastic. He was a really strong blocker, sort of a very tough player, unlike someone that not like the sort of shifty wide receivers that I tended to like scouting, but I like the
Yeah.
size, I like the speed. He just hasn't really shown the ability to get open. If having Dave Canales brought in makes a difference in that term in terms of that coaching, if Bryce Young takes the next step, someone is going to have to be the wide receiver 2 alongside Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why it can't be Jonathan Mingo, who, if I'm being honest, I would probably still consider a debate between him and Dontavian Wicks, who was the player I was offered right at the beginning. So
That's true. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think, I mean, Mingo obviously had a really terrible rookie season. That's because he was drafted so much higher. But he didn't finish. He only finished with like 100 yards less than Dontavian Wicks. He just didn't score any touchdowns. So actually, was I that much worse off than my second offer? It was all going well when I opened the fourth, and then it started becoming Bijan and Chris Olave, and then it didn't go so well.
Well, let me ask you this: Is Jonathan Mingo worth more than a 2027 fourth, Lewis? I think so. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you're doing better than your colleague for sure over there, Paul. And let's just make sure Miles Sanders. Oh no. Sorry,
Oh,
not Miles
Jatavian.
Sanders. It's Jatavian. I got my Sanderses mixed up. They're still like he's maybe more interesting than Miles, right? He was someone that was hyped up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Anything to say on Jatavian Sanders?
He was really interesting. He was my tight end 2 before the combine and the scouting process, and then he just
Yeah, me
dropped
too.
down everyone's boards.
Yeah.
I think just because he's not really a blocking tight end, but
No.
he also isn't quite good enough of a receiving tight end to be just a receiver.
Yeah.
So yeah, JT Sanders is still someone I've taken a fair amount of in sort of the 3rd round. There's definitely chance on the depth chart there, but not someone that I'm as excited about as I was before the sort of the combine and draft process started.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Jatavian Sanders. And Lewis, that brings us to the end of Dynasty Deal or No Deal, where you walk away with another share to add to your collection of Jonathan
It's
Bingo. Lewis, this has been great having you on the show again. Do you just want to remind everyone where can they find all your great work online?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Pancake. I also appear on the Wildcard Rewind show that records every Monday. It's a really fantastic show. We talk about redraft with my good friends Hannah and Paul, who we've spoken about a lot today. You can also, if you've enjoyed hearing my work, you can read some of my work at dynastypancake.co.uk. I have, as I hinted at earlier, an article coming out, I think, late evening tomorrow, looking at sort of that sophomore breakout for wide receivers, and is it real? And if it is real, who should we be targeting for next season?
Yeah, I can't wait to check that one out, Lewis. That's going to be a great read. All Lewis's articles are always really, really informative and super cool website as well. It's just look, just go check it out. You'll see when you open it. It's nice. You'll scroll through it, and it's a good time. So thanks once again, mate, for coming on the show, and thank you, of course, to everybody listening. If you've not already made this far, hey, a little like would be lovely, and of course, a subscribe as well helps out too. And that brings us to the end of the episode. So thank you for joining once again. Lewis, thank you once again, mate. That was absolutely brilliant. And guys listening, remember, for anything Dynasty you need to know, keep it locked in the certified inferno. We'll see you next time. Bye.